Good day everyone, welcome to another stream. Um, in this video today, I'm just going to be doing a quick study of Damora's art, his art style, and just take note of some things that I actually appreciate about his art. Yeah, so Dan Mora is a Costa Rican comic book artist, and he has worked on different comic books. Some of the popular ones are Power Rangers, and he has worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He has also worked on like Action Comics Batman and A World's Finest. And he has also worked on independent titles like Klaus with Grant Morrison and Once and Future with Kieron Gillen. So where I actually first encountered Dan Mora's work was from um, the Once and Future story and that independent title Once and Future story. So I think it was a friend of mine that actually told me about the story and I just checked it out. I think I just read like 5 issues of the story in general. I don't know if it's still an ongoing title, but I actually appreciated his art um, in that book. Like it was, I like how simplistic it looked, but it just got the point across. But it was also really nice. I liked the way he drew faces; they were clean, and they were simple. Like I wouldn't say simple in the sense of like basic, but they were, how would I put it now? They looked clean, like he had pretty characters. That's what I would say. Yeah, so he has really nice art. But like I don't these days I don't read a lot of comic books except from like those from my favorite artists. Like even guys like David Finch, if they were to like work on Batman or like this main DC stories, it's usually quite difficult for me to get into it again because I did read a lot of comics a few years back. So a bit jaded with the Marvel DC thing. It's not like I'm snobbing at it or anything. It's not snobbery or like me being a cynic. It's just like at the moment, I like to see a lot more independent titles, right? And so things outside of the traditional Marvel and DC. So that's what actually one of the things that led me to reading manga a lot. It's not like a lot of the mangas are actually independent. It's just that it's something different, and it was a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. But like I do keep notes of all these amazing artists that do still work for Marvel and DC. So like Jorge Jimenez, Dan Mora, I think even Jason Fabok for a while now, he has joined Ghost, a group called Ghost Machine. So he hasn't done a lot of DC stuff. So yeah, like those artists, I do take note of them, but like to actually open the comic book and read them, it's a bit difficult for me. So I like how I just study their work is that I'll just go online and just like on the internet, just type their name and whatever art comes up, that's the one I'll use. Or if I encounter it like on social media, that's what I'll then draw from that. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm drawing Dan Mora's work. So I have this Batman piece here. One thing I like about his work is that, like I said, it's deceptively simple, but it's I actually not right. He just understands the basics very well, and he makes like the interpretation of his work like he's just good at interpreting information like very well. I would say he's a very skilled artist, and now I would only dream to do the things that he can do. Um, I hope to do the things that he has done, like work on amazing titles like he has. But um, like I said, he is not my favorite comic book artist or anything like that. He's just someone I really admire and appreciate his art. Hello, Emma. Is that the name? Hello, Emma. Nice to meet you. Thanks for saying hi. Hope you're having a lovely day. I'm just doing a quick study of Dan Mora's art. I don't know if you know about the artist. He's a comic book artist. He's quite popular. Working on DC Comics. He's basically carrying DC Comics. some people would suggest. And I think he's currently working on Transformers with Robert Kirkman, the guy that did that wrote Invincible, with Ryan Otley. Oh, Ryan Otley was the artist, and Kirkman was the writer. Um, Hope you're having a nice weekend, even though the weekend is just now over. Um, Hope the Valentine, I believe, was good to you and your family. Yeah, so of course, with every drawing, the same way with every drawing, you have to like apply the basic first. So I'm going to do my construction very simply and quickly, and we'll move from there and look for the things that actually make it interesting, makes his work unique, right? Because whenever I see a Damora work, it's very evident. I just know it's his art, right? I just know it's his art. I don't question anything. It's very plain and obvious that it's his art. So we're going to try and see what makes his art style unique. So I've applied the my basic pose here. So I applied my basic pose here with the hands. So now I'm just gonna try and do a bit of detailing. Right. So we'll zoom in to his lines. One thing to note about his art is that his lines are quite simple, right? They are quite. He doesn't mess about because, and I think it's usually because of the same thing with a lot of these artists. It's usually because of time constraints. So he doesn't mess about with his art. He just goes straight to the point. There was a video I saw of him sketching, and he was like really fast. Like he's a really like quick artist. And why I like him is, apart from being really quick, he's also the art also looks clean at the same time. The art looks clean. So it's not just you know, speed for speed's sake. It's actually how he draws. And he doesn't use a lot of hatching lines. He used textures. He used more textures than artists like Jason Fabok. So he's more akin to guys like Jorge Jimenez in terms of like texture, rather than um, you know um, just using plain blacks. He uses the plain blacks, but he uses more textures as well. So you can see like this texture or over this character's face. And then let's go. And you can see his lines are very clean. Like it almost looks like he's sketching. Like if you look at how he draws, like it comes out really clean and it looks good, but it almost looks like he's sketching most of the time. But it's still clean, right? You still get that cleanliness in his lines. And I just think that's mastery. I just think that's someone who has spent years honing his skill, and he's not so good at it. And like poses don't give him an issue. Like, and I know an artist, some artists like David Finch, for instance, he's going to spend a lot of time on doing these abs, even though like the light is coming from the bottom of the character, like he's having an underlighting and maybe a highlight here and there, but like based on the highlights, someone like David Finch should probably like just make this whole area like this black, and then make this whole area like this black. Like there will be a lot of blacks in the drawing, but he just doesn't like okay, that was bad. All right, I was having a bit of network issues. I always forget to put my phone on work mode. So yeah, that's bad and very unprofessional. Would work on that. So anyways, and also the way he applies shadows, he's just very, like, you can see that he's very expressive with the way he walks. Like he doesn't like let anything just, like, you can just see that he doesn't think too much, right? You can just see that he's just getting the job done. Like, what's the next piece? Damora, hello Adam. So Damora is he's a very popular comic book artist, but apparently you don't know him. So I'm just going to tell you what I know about him. So I'm not like I don't follow him a lot, but he has worked on a lot of titles, like on DC Comics. You can check Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Let me just write it down here. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I hope you can see that. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And he's very good at composition. Like, let me just show you some of his works. I think that's just going to be better. Like, just look at this. Like, this is really nice. Like, you can just see how he just uses big shapes, small shapes. Like, there's a hierarchy to his work, right? Composition, if you want like really cool looking comic book covers, I don't know if he's the one that does the coloring, but I do know that he's a very skilled colorist. You can check out Klaus as well. Klaus, this is the name. Klaus is another work that he has done. It's like an alternative look on Santa Claus. This Santa Claus has magical powers and things like that. Like, just look at this. He's really, like, it's very simple, but it's really cool. And I personally wouldn't think of most of the covers he does, but I do look at his work and, like, so that I can get ideas. Like, for like the issue 3 of my comic, I did copy his one of his approaches to, I don't know if that was a cover, but I did apply it to draw my own cover. So he's good at composition. Like, that is the thing I appreciate most about his art. Well, one of the things, but he's really good at composition, like making, like, directing your eyes on where the what like where directing your eyes on where you should go when looking at a comic book cover. And and his comic book covers, he has done Shazam as well. He has worked on Shazam. Yeah, yeah, his composition style is really good, Adam. It's really good. Like, just check him out. I promise you, you won't regret it. And he's currently working on Transformers with Robert Kirkman. I believe Transformers is one of the really good comics that is coming out these days. But I haven't checked it out. But I've heard good things about the story and how it was. He's the new artist that is currently working on it, but there was a previous artist that was working on the Transformers series. So but now he has taken over the title with Robert Kirkman. So they are the two guys that are currently working on it now, and that's a really good combo. So yeah, just check the guy out. Once you've, like, sort of copied a lot of his work, I think you will also improve in terms of composition, drawing, and as well for just enjoyment. His art is really good to look at. He's one of those artists where, if there's anything I'm going to pick from him, is it's actually how he draws faces. Like, I like David Finch's art style, but sometimes the way he draws faces can be very rigid. Um, and he adds a lot of details to him, but Dan Mora doesn't add a lot of detail. He just, even like characters that are ugly, you actually enjoy looking at them. Like, scary and weird characters as well. Like, even Joker, um, like, they just look good. They just look good. His art is just fun to look at. That's what I would say. But you know, and there's definitely things that I try to pick from his art. So that's the reason I'm doing this study. And I'm not just drawing like copying his characters, the characters exactly. Because like I said, the world doesn't need another Superman drawing. So I'm just drawing my own personal character to just feel it. Um, and you can see even with this Batman piece, the way he just uses the cape to sort of um, tell us where we should look at, like directs us to his eyes and then the rest of his powerful pose. And this is the type of art, when I was younger, I would always like to see and just copy. Not because you can see his type of art style being animated. Like it's something that they could copy, like animation companies or studios would copy and actually use because of how clean and cool looking it is. It's the same thing with somebody like maybe Ruiz, where you can see how her art style was sort of used in the story Intergalactic, and it even has like a close look to Arcane. So I don't know, he just has a really cool art style, and it also feels, maybe one of the reasons I like it as well is that it also feels a bit manga-ish in look, in the sense of approach and like how he doesn't apply so much detail. So yeah, that's just Dan Mora for you. That's just Dan Mora. Simplicity at its finest, in my opinion. Like very skilled artist, goes straight to the point. Doesn't he doesn't detail too much if it's not needed. Like for characters, like I believe I saw like a page or two of the Transformer comic that he's working on. And even though the characters are, Transformer is like they are machines, right? They're Autobots, yeah. So they are machines, and they they have a lot of detail to them because they do transform into cars and stuff, and sometimes that transformation process, drawing it can be quite hectic. So but if you look at how he draws them, they're quite clean, right? They're quite clean and straight to the point. They are they are difficult to draw, but the way he his approach to drawing them is quite unique. So yeah, that's what I would say. Um, yeah, Adam. Transformation can be messy drawing, of course. But the thing that always surprises me is that why when I look at some artists, what I just try to figure out is like how are they going to draw a certain thing, like a certain pose, how are they going to draw a situation, how would they draw, I don't know, like certain things happening. Like so what I usually like, I usually appreciate it if there was a way to actually see the writer's script, right? The writer's script for that particular comic. Because you would imagine, like just getting like the way one artist is going to handle a certain panel, it will be quite different from how another artist handles a comic book panel. So it's quite fun if you could like sort of study what's going on. Like if you look at these muscles he's doing here, why I talk about simplicity a lot is you can see that he doesn't like this area of the body. It's where the lats and the serratus anterior usually is. Someone like David Finch is just going to actually detail it, irregardless of what the the material that Batman is wearing is. So that's just one thing. Um, yeah, and Damura will do this, and he'll be done with it, and just add a couple hatches here and there. I'm just going to do that as well. I forgot to put music again. All right. So just check out Klaus and Power Rangers, and you can also check out Shazam. He did a couple of issues in Shazam. I've forgotten the full title of the Shazam story. Um, Adam said Finch is very good working with shadows to make forms of muscle. He would make the serratus anterior heavy black silhouette. Yes, exactly, exactly. You get what I mean. His approach is going to be very different. Like even like if you look at this angle of this Batman, like this area here, this is where the coraco brachialis is going to be located. David Finch is going to actually detail this area, right, and cover this entire area in black, right, this bicep area in black. And then he's also going to cover, because of the area, the cape itself, in as much regardless of the fact that the light is coming this direction, he's still going to cover this area in black, yeah, and still cover this bottom area in black, and these hands as well in black. It's very good to be able to note these artistic preferences and choices, so that you can have all this knowledge and information at your disposal as an artist when you're working, so that whenever you're drawing, you can, in the moment, just pick, what is going to fit well for this character, what is going to make it look the way I want my art to look. And you can just have all these choices and options. Yeah, Finch is very good with using shadows to actually get the forms of the characters he works with. Very nice. Yeah, I also remembered I did a stream a few days ago where I was talking about David Finch, and I didn't really enjoy the stream because I didn't position myself in a way that I could um, draw in a comfortable position, so I was quite slow. But in that stream, what I talked about was, I was talking about David Finch in general, and the new comic he's working on. It's called Skin Breakers. His art is just so cool to look at, man, because he would just like, I don't know, man. Like his art is just like, ever since I was young, I've always liked his art style, and which also made me like Jason Fabok's art style, because I believe Jason Fabok worked under, or sort of learned under um, David Finch. So their art style is quite similar. I can tell, like, despite how similar their art style is, I can tell between David Finch and Fabok, like who did a particular piece. Because despite how similar their art style is, it's still unique. You said like he did a Tarzan stream and he made a mistake and quickly fixed up with shadow. You were impressed. Yeah, yeah. Like a lot of the times, we look up to these artists and we always think that they are perfect, but they are not. They are just experienced. And because he definitely has, the thing you talked about, the Tarzan video, is because he's probably has done something like that multiple times because of how much comic book he has done. He's able to just easily rectify that because he's familiar with that kind of problem as an artist. So you know that's why like you have to admire like artists like David Finch, because they are giving out all these materials to us for free. Like just the just being able to watch him walk, you can learn a lot from it, and you can just take note of that whenever you are doing your own work. You said you are more of a fan of cross hatching though. The lines are more appealing to me. Yeah, like for me, yeah, the reason why, like, for me, Damora isn't like my favorite comic book artist, but there's still something I could learn from him as an artist, right? And for me, my favorite comic book artists, like the David Finches, the Jim Lees, the Takehiko Inoue's, the Yusuke Muratas, like these guys, they use a lot of hatches in their work to actually give form to whatever it is that they are drawing. So, and even I'm going to do a stream on him very soon. The guy that did what's the name of this manga? Vinland Saga. Um, um, I've forgotten his name. Let me check. Let me check it. Vinland Saga. Let me check it real quick. Vinland Saga. Vinland Saga. Manga. Yeah, it's done by Mokoto Yukimura. Yeah. So like he also is like one of my favorite manga artists. Like his work is so good, and especially because I sort of saw the progression in his art, like when he was doing Vinland Saga, and how it has been across the years. So yeah, I do appreciate hatching lines a lot. He said something else I noticed, which he pointed out also by complimenting another artist, is that he does faces too similar. He likes the same type of face over and over. Shows even the best have limits. Exactly. Yeah, what they call that, same face syndrome, right? When an artist, does the same like faces, you can't necessarily distinguish between this person and another person because of how similar they all look. I do see it a lot in manga art. A lot of most manga artists, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but they are those that are actually really skilled, but they do have same face syndrome. It's not all the manga artists, because there are simple shape language you could use to just make your character stand out, maybe with the hair color, or with the maybe a ring nose or something. But uh, sometimes artists, even really good ones, even really skilled ones, that a lot of people admire, they do tend to have same face syndrome, I mean, with their art. Even the best of the best, that they can do such great maybe body horror or things like that, you would see that their art is just in terms of how they look, how their characters look, they look similar. And usually it's just because they try to make their appearances of their characters look pretty. And sometimes they're a bit scared to take risk in regards to how their character looks. That's the thing. You're right. We said uh, yeah, yeah, everyone has their limits. Everyone has There's this thing, the way I looked at it years ago was that I look at, because I'm a fan of football. I don't know where you're from. I believe it's called soccer in the US. So I'm a fan of football, right? And when I uh, played games a lot, like FIFA, every player has a rating. Yeah, every player has a rating system. I think it's something like this, like a hexagon. Let me just show you. Right, every player has a rating system. Let me just draw it here. Every player has a rating system, right? And a player could have let's say athletes, right? Footballers, sprinters, everything. They would have pace, right? They would have defense. They would have shooting, and they would have physicality. Yeah, they would have physicality, and then they would have what else? I'm missing something. Dribbling, dribbling. There's to be. They'll have dribbling, and they'll have something else. Passing. Yes, passing. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like yeah, I just saw your message now, Adam. Like it I think it just turned off. I don't know why I keep getting messages, man. And I put my phone on work mode so that I wouldn't get any messages, but it just keeps coming through. I, I don't know. It's quite frustrating. Yeah, I don't know if what I was talking about was cotton. Oh my god, it wasn't, was it? Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was. I don't think it was, man. That's so annoying, man. I can't wait to just upgrade, man, and just actually stream from my system. Because doing it from my phone just pisses me off at times. What I was trying to talk about was that I was trying to like compare um, artists to athletes in the sense of like every artist has their rating. If you were like athletes, they have their rating and categories of how to rate athletes, right? Like for like a footballer, for instance, you could their statistics, the statistics of a footballer that is uh, that is being rated would they what am I talking about? Their statistics could be rated from things like pace, dribbling, passing, physicality, and things like that, right? That would be the metrics at which you rate like professional footballers. Yeah. Same also with artists. The way you could rate them would be in regards to their understanding of the art fundamentals, right? Their skills. So the same way different athletes have different strengths, right, and different profiles, is the same way different artists, digital artists, have different profiles. Um, Yeah, I didn't know, man. Thanks for telling me. Thanks for mentioning it to me. I wouldn't have known if I wasn't like looking at the charts because I have my laptop right next to me here. So I usually use it to monitor it, and I wasn't looking in that direction. I was explaining something, so I was just rambling. Um, yeah. Anyways, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that skill point map is it's something I sort of used to analyze artists, and it's also what I try to use to encourage artists that are also coming up and that are learning as well, because you know the thing that you are innately good at is going to be different from what another artist is innately good at. That's why we have different artists, right? We have artists that focus on concept art, we have artists that focus on comic books, we have artists that focus on environments, and then we have 3D artists as well. Everybody has what they have an affinity for. So you just have to figure out where your strength is, and focus on that and try to be the best in that area, right? A football player that is born with innate pace is it and low physicality isn't going to try and work on his physicality as much as he's going to try and actually use his pace. And same also for the player that is the reverse. So yeah, I think that's it for this pose. I'm going to go on to another pose. um I'm going to go on to another pose so that I don't spend all day on. My goodness. And I'm going to leave this here for now. Let me get to another pose. Let me get some other pose. Let me get let's get I don't know why is Danmora so down. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, there's it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, let me draw a face. Um, I'll show you what I was talking about in regards to how he draws face. You can see that if you were to compare, if you were to compare this lady's face, like if you were to give maybe David Finch or Inoue this a face to draw in this angle. The way they are going to represent it is far different from the way that Mora does, because first of all, someone like Takehiko Inoue, he's going to, well, let's talk about drawing female faces in general. The thing that happens when drawing female faces in general is that they try as much as possible to not use a lot of lines, right? So that it can look pretty and not so rigid. Because guys, um, almost everybody can draw a man, because you can get away with making a guy look ugly. But if you draw a woman and she looks ugly, you're not going to be really satisfied with what you've drawn. Yeah, so like generally artists, they try to not put as much detail on the face as possible and try to make it look clean. But it then goes back to style, right? The thing like David Finch would do is that he wouldn't put this amount of texture or shade on you know when he draws women. And Danmora always uses black to represent like the color of the lipstick that the lady in particular is wearing. So um, that's one thing I've noticed. So we're just going to quickly try and draw this. I'm going to try and replicate the way he drew this lady here. So she's a bit surprised, and I believe this page is from the uh, Once and Future comic. Yeah, so getting the nose. Try to use simple shapes to get the nose, so that when I'm inking it, I won't be like, I can then follow it, because sometimes these art styles, when you're trying to copy it, can be a bit tricky. This second eyebrow, and then the eyes. The eyes. You can see how clean it is, even the lines. Like, it's the same way whenever he draws guys. Draws it straight to the point, but it also, you know, it just looks good. Just looks good. If there's something I could do, I would fuse the way he draws faces with the way David Finch applies detail. But then, but I also want to apply. I would also like to add the way Yusuke Murata does fight compositions, fight scenes, right? And the way Inoue draws motion, right? So if you could just fuse all these artists together, that's a type of artist, well, I would want to be. So it's then left to you to actually take all these things that you prefer in this artist and try to work on them and practice them. Adam said women are more difficult to draw, in your opinion. Men are very bulky, so you don't have to be subtle with curves. Yes, that is true. That is true. Like, you could get away with, like, drawing a deformed man, and you could always be consistent with it for whatever reason. But women are much more difficult. They are much more of a challenge to draw, because usually you would want to draw a pretty looking woman, and if at the end of the day you don't, like, it, it's not satisfactory like the way you wanted to draw her, it can be quite annoying. And that is one of the reasons why I spent a lot of time drawing portraits of women. Like, if you let me just go back for a moment and just show you some drawings I did years ago. That was like in 2023. um, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of portraits, and majority of what I painted were women, because uh, like I painted like men a lot, and it was quite easy in my opinion. I'm not saying like drawing is easy, but it was easier to draw men than it was to draw women. But with practice, I got better. I got better at doing it, but I had to, practice over and over again. And one of the artists that actually helped me, well, I talk about artists that inspire me in terms of drawing comics, right? But there's also artists that inspire me in terms of like drawing portraits, like painting, doing portrait drawings. And one of the artists that do that is Mavis Ruiz. I don't know if you would know her. She has she's one of my favorites not comic book portrait artist, and it was her style that actually helped me easily. Studying her style actually helped me easily deconstruct uh, portrait paintings, and I got better with time. So drawing portraits now, I wouldn't say has become like a lot more easier than it was a few years ago for me, because I had to spend time to actually cure my fear and my you know aversion towards drawing female characters, because I never really got them. Yeah, thank you. um Thank you, Adam. Thank you. And ever since I did as that amount of portrait drawing, because I almost did like one every 2 days. Yeah, so I would start it and I would end up finishing it probably like tomorrow, and most days I would finish it in a few hours. And ever since I did that, it was a bit like I got bored with it, so I hadn't done like portraits or any painting in about a year. Plus I was also working, so I couldn't like muster the energy to like sort of do portrait paintings. So, but whatever problem you're having in art, you just tackle it, you just face it, and eventually you get better at it. It's the same thing I'm doing with the art fundamentals, anatomy. Like the areas in anatomy that I'm weak in, art are weak. There are a lot, but I have a plan to sort of like make myself better. And the first area is anatomy, and that's why if you look at my video or my content, a lot of my content, I talk a lot about anatomy, because it's something I'm not great at. And the more you talk about something, the better you're going to be at it. So um yeah, and the next thing I'll probably move on to will be value, composition, or perspective, because I'm not good at perspective as well. It's one of my weaknesses, but it doesn't mean it should stop you from creating art. I still make comic books, and perspective is pretty vital to comic books, right? It's pretty vital. Like, you need to understand perspective, 2 points, 3 points, so that you can be creative and create dynamic scenes. And if you are not great at perspective, you might have a bit of a tough time drawing comics. But it doesn't mean it's stopping me from creating comics. Um, but I still, have to work on that direction. So that's what I'm doing here. Yeah. So I think we've been able to get the face. I think we've been able to get the face. I think I did an okay job here. Um, Adam, you said you are very knowledgeable on anatomy. People that draw for years don't know the names like you do. Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate. Yeah, the way I studied it. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it means a lot, and I hope it's always helping someone out. Um, Whenever I do breakdowns like that. So yeah, what I did, right, was that because a lot of the names were really difficult to memorize when I started out. What I did was that I would get I actually watched some YouTube videos that actually broke down the anatomy, like parts of the body, and I would try to see how the muscles overlap, and really deconstruct them so that I will not be lost. Like I didn't aim to know all the muscles, but like sometimes I just couldn't help myself because I was just confused on what was going on in the body, and I still am sometimes, but I believe I have a good grasp on the basics, and that's how I learned it. And then I drew from art books. I drew from art books over and over and over again, and that's how I've improved. I still have a lot to learn, but at least I'm at a good place where I can draw from memory, anatomy. I can draw from memory, and anybody can do that. You just have to spend the time. It just takes a lot of time. And learning anatomy is going to help you to break down things like this. Because I always wanted to be more productive with studies like this and not be left, looking lost. So, and now I'm better. Anyways, I'm not going to apply this exact same texture he applied to the lips. So I'm just going to be a bit, I don't know. I'm just going to do something different, but quite similar. Because a mistake most people make is that because they don't have the texture brush, that's the because that's one thing that actually frustrated me with knowing about Jorge Jimenez's art style. Simply because you don't have the texture that character that artist has, they just become frustrated with studying that artist because they are not getting the same effects that they want. Um, so you just have to use what you have whenever you're doing studies like this. Yeah, and I think that's okay. It's a sketch. I didn't want to ink it again because it was already looking clean enough. So I think that's okay like that. You know what? I'm just going to make her hair black. I'm just going to add blackness to her hair. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Adam. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So let me just add and you can see that like if how would I put it now, if it were to be David Finch, he would do a bit more strands on her hair. Like he would make them look have that like ribbon like look to them, but he just, you can just see how quickly you can just see that he just used a single brush to just like lay out the highlights on her hair. And I'm not going to use that approach. I'm just going to find a way to just add the blacks simply, but I get the gist of what he's trying to do, or what he did, I mean, not what he's trying to do. And just add this. I'm trying to look at, take note of the light so that I sort of follow what he's doing. And then like the blacks is what's going to pop it, make it pop. I mean, um, let me quickly hurry up and get into another phase. Mm, let's see. The entire thing got blackened. Anyways, I'm going to leave it like this. Um, let me do another image, another reference. Let's get another reference. Probably another pose, right? Let's do a man's face, right? So you can see that his faces are quite simple, right? They're quite simple, and in this case, it's kind of because this character is a young character, but it's the same technique. He sort of applies all over the body of the character and his outfit. You can see that he's not using a lot of hatching lines. He's just using a few here and there. He's using that same texture that he used for like the hair, the lady's hair that I showed you before. The same one I didn't use. Um, he's using that same texture for their like the body, like the texture of the clothing and things like that. So you can see the faces are very they are cutish, and you can see the manga like influence on it. I don't know, I don't think he has said that he's influenced by manga, but they do look a bit manga-ish. You can see the 50% Western and the 50% Eastern in his work. So I'm just going to try and copy the face um, here of this guy. You can see he doesn't add like even with the nose, he's not he's not very detailed about it. Oh my, that was a yawn. Of course, your proportions first. Try and get your proportions right so that your work doesn't look ugly. And then the eyes, the areas for the eyes, just gonna put that here like this. Don't forget your center line of on your face so that you properly pat the jaw as well. Right, and then the nose, the area for the nose, which is going to be here, and then the mouth, right? And our character is smiling. So he doesn't waste time on it. He doesn't waste time on it. He just used the normal technique. There was a time I was doing study on the mouth, and I was breaking the mouth down, and I was explaining how comic book artists and manga artists, they just there's a general simplicity with how you draw mouths, right? Mouths like this they usually mean smiling, happy, and depending on how you draw them, you can exaggerate them, and the style of how you're drawing it would affect it. But you can see that even with realistic drawings, right, you can still use that same technique. So if we're saying things like the shapes like this U shapes, right, represent smile, and reverse U represents angry and sad and things like that. You can also apply that with drawing real mouths. Like you could just do that and then draw the lips like this, yeah, and then you could use like a dark triangle like I talk about, and then add this, and then you have a mouth, right, a pretty realistic looking mouth, and then you can add your shading based on that. So but there's a scale of realistic realism, scale of realism, or you could call it stylization, scale of stylization, where let's say from 1 to 10 on how stylized you want your art to look. And let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say this is like a 7 in terms of stylization. um yeah, that in my opinion. um that may not be factual, but that is my opinion on how I feel it is. It's really good. I really like stylized art. But whenever I see art like this, I just imagine, and it's usually because of my own preference. The same thing, someone who really admires Dan Mora's art would be like, uh, would look at David Finch's art and be like, I just wonder how um, Dan Mora would do this, right? Probably because they like the simplicity of his work. Yeah, so all goes back to preferences. So I'm just going to draw this quickly. Yeah, very simply. And I think the mask is supposed to be. And to be honest, I can see how, in as much as his work, you can see how much fun he's having with these drawings, these expressions, and things like that. Because of how he makes the whole drawing process quite easy for himself. Of course, there are artists that they won't be satisfied with how with a simplistic art style. They always want to push it a bit more, and that's why artists like Takehiko Inoue, the guy that did Real, and also did Vagabond. I saw like a sort of mini documentary about his process, and the guy was just never satisfied with how his art looked. He always wanted to push it a bit more. Um, Even though he was like releasing on like but I think his comic was bi-weekly or on a monthly basis, I can't remember, but he was still delivering at an very fast rate, like a huge volume of work, for and they were still very detailed, but he still wasn't like satisfied with it. So all right, so let me just do this. Okay, I think spending too much time on it. Let me quickly quickly wrap this up. I have to take note of the angles um, where the head ends, despite the art style. You still have to keep it proportional. Still have to understand basic construction of the human head. And once you put all these basic techniques in your head and you actually practice them, you're going to get better for sure. I think that's quite close to his own. It's not exactly, but I think it's quite close. And yeah, we're done with this head. We're done with this head. Very simply, let's add the highlights of the hair, and then this here and there. I can think of several artists that would spend more time on this hair. They would spend more time on this hair. But the thing about it is that, when you really deep it, like, in as much as it's going to look really nice in the moment, like people just, they wouldn't care. They just look at it and go to the next one, go to the next page. you know Sometimes it can be a thankless profession art, and you would spend days on a page only for someone to just spend like 30 seconds looking at it. Yeah, but we do it because we enjoy it, because we like it. Please, if you're just dropping in, please just give the video a like. um just give the video a like, please. We have 3 people currently watching, so please just drop a like if you haven't. Just simple. What's going on here? We're going to do that for the second eye. I think I made the eyes too far apart, now that I'm looking at it. With practice, any artist that you want to copy, any artist that you want to draw like, you eventually draw like them. And the thing about it is that no matter how much you like an artist's work, there will definitely be one thing that you would prefer not to add, that artist usually adds in their work. And that single choice is what would completely make your own unique art style. That is what's going to differentiate you from that artist. Um, it could be how much detail you add at certain parts of the body, or like in your inking or whatever. But that single decision is what's actually going to make you unique from that artist. So just keep practicing. It gets difficult sometimes, but just keep going. You definitely reach the levels that you want to reach. Also, comic book updates. I finished. Well, I wouldn't say I've gone far, but I did 5 new pages. Not five. I mean, 4 new pages. 4 new pages of my comic. So the comic is coming along quite very slowly. Like the progress is slow, but I have to eat, so I have to take on like jobs, uh, other people's jobs, so that I can, be able to afford to do things like this. I spent a while on this one. Anyways, that's it. I won't ink it. I'll just try and just detail the sketches and stuff like that. And of course, when you color it, it's going to look a lot better. Yeah, so let's add another study. This time maybe we'll do a full pose. Let's see. Oh my. Oh, my neck, man. I feel like I need a chiropractor. What do I draw next? Now let's do these poses. Let's do this. Let's do this one. We did a male pose before. Let's do this one now. Alright, it's poison ivy. You can see he's pretty consistent with how he draws the lips. Pretty consistent. Let's do a quick sketch. Let's when drawing a torso as usual, I'm going to get the face first. Let's see. The thing I always have to like try and focus on when doing like figures like this or when copying them so that I don't make mistake is try to focus on the proportions and the big shapes, make sure they're intact, because you're still going to have to go in and redo them, no matter what. You're still going to have to go and redo them. You know, and when you use like things like cylinders, like I keep saying, um, cylinders, cubes, and all these sort of simple shapes, drawing becomes a whole lot easier and much more fun because uh, then you don't think think a lot about what you need to like. You just know that you're just focusing on the detailing. You're just adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. I think we have that initial pose. The next one we're going to focus on is think and always remember that they are 3D shapes, so it's going to make your life a whole lot easier with this figure drawing of a thing. Yeah, so we'll get there when we get there. Generally we've gotten the shape, even though I think I made the hips a bit too much, but we'll adjust that later on. Anyways, trying to get the what do they call it now, the construction for the face. Center line, always important. And most times the way the character looks and the way their eyes are big, in terms of the reference you're looking at, it can always sort of Adam, you said what channels did I go to when learning anatomy? The channels I went to when learning anatomy is I went to let me just check it. I went to David Finch, of course, but he wasn't the main channel I looked at. Let me show you. Let me see. Um, let me just see. I'll let me just check search the name of the of the artist. Anatomy. Anatomy. Let me see. What do they call it? Anatomy legs. Anatomy legs. Oh yes. So the name of the channel I searched when I was studying anatomy was this guy called let me just write it down. Corporis. Corporis, that's his name. Corporis. Yeah. Corporis. So I searched this guy out and I just typed in like anatomy of the leg, anatomy legs, and he popped up, and I just, he just 15-minute video. He just talked about the anatomy of the legs, and then you could also check the ones for arms. Did anatomy of the arm. So he just said the names. So what I really wanted to understand was the names of the character, because once you sort of get the names, you can get the etymology, of the names of the body parts. And when you know the etymology, it's going to be quite easy to remember the names of the characters, because a lot no characters, muscles, because once you sort of understand the Latin names, and how a lot of the names are from like simple words. So you would see words like um simple words like vast, right? And vast means big, right? And then you would see that a muscle is called vastus lateralis, right? And then once you figure out that vast is vastus and lateral just simply means side, it becomes easier to sort of remember the name. So just check out corporis, and he's a quite popular YouTuber when it comes to anatomy. He knows his stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the guys I checked. And I know Proku, but I didn't watch a lot of his videos. I didn't watch a lot of his Proko's video, just one or two here and there. But that's what I watched. And there was also one more. I can't remember it, but it was from a university, I believe. Um, I can't remember the name. But yeah, that was when I was studying the muscles of the. Was it? Was it when I was drawing the eye, learning how to draw the eye? So check out corporis. But what helped me the most was this book, Anatomy for what do they call it? What is the book? Anatomy for Sculptors. This was the book that helped me the most. Just go through everything in the book, and you'll be very good. You'll be solid on anatomy. Like if you just draw everything in the book, you'll be good at anatomy. That's just my pitch for that. Like you're just going to be good at anatomy. So yeah, that's how I learned anatomy. All right, so we shouldn't be get distracted by the hair and everything going on. We just have to get the construction of her face, because one thing most people make when they are doing figure drawings like this is that um, maybe the dress or whatever, they will just get distracted by that, and that will sort of by the time they are done with their art, they're just not going to be happy with how it looks. But once they just forget about that and just like get the structure of how a head looks and just get that down, and then you can add the fun stuff like the hair later on, it's going to be a lot easier for you to draw. And of course, like you reduce the um you said you like Proco, but I don't watch for some reason. Thank you for the recommendation. You're welcome, man. Um, you're welcome. Yeah. I like Proku, man. Like he has done a lot for the art community, but I don't know. I just don't watch his videos that much. I like what he has. Like he has a lot of really good videos. Like I also checked his website. His courses are uh they look really good, man. Like he has like a course on virtually everything, but I just don't watch some of his videos for some reason. um they are cool though, they are really helpful, but I just don't watch a lot of them. Nothing against him though, just I just don't watch them. Everybody learns differently, I guess. um and the way I learn now, I'm just seeing the mistake I made with this stuff. Now I have to correct it. Her eyes are further apart than I thought. Yeah. So yeah, everybody has the way that they learn. You just have to figure out what you're comfortable with. Um, and for me, the way I learn is like, like my favorite artists. I like looking at what they do. I take notes on what they, their videos, like David Finch. Like I watched a video on, when he did how to draw the legs, but for me it wasn't as rich as I wanted it to be, because I felt like there was still more information lacking on the table. I like his style and I like how he draws, but I had to then go and source for other materials so that I can get what I felt was lacking in the video. And it's the same thing, right? Everybody's learning from somewhere, and because they are learning from somewhere, they are not getting the full information. So it's just left to you as an as well, a student of the game, rather, I would say, someone that is trying to learn. It's just left to you to get that information, and get that information that you feel you're lacking. And in my opinion, once you get that information, share it, well, to anybody that's willing to listen, and that's how the information is going to stick, in my opinion. That's why I have, one of the reasons I have this YouTube channel as well. So even though I don't have a lot of views, settling down to actually, you know, do these videos, it makes me a better artist, and that's the ultimate goal. It's kind of like with when you're a student with exams, and then you are like, you prepare for exams, right? And it's cool studying and all that, but then one of the ways to actually remember a lot of what you've studied is to actually share it with your friends. And like, if a friend of yours doesn't understand what the lecturer taught, you just break it down for him based on what you've studied, and then you can also figure out the areas that you're lacking as well, and then go back and study and become a better student. And that's how learning works. You have to give, so that you can get. You said you struggle with the forearms. I can do a simple one with bumps on both sides, but the muscles is confusing, like a bunch of cables that twist in different perspective. Yeah, bro, like you're not alone in that. I also struggle with the arm a lot. Like, they are quite annoying. The muscles are quite annoying. In fact, the muscles of the arm are even more annoying than the muscles of the legs, because I don't know, the muscles of the legs, I don't know, man. I just feel like the muscles of the arms are quite annoying. But let me just share with you, what I know. Maybe you can pick one thing or two things from there. Uh, Hopefully, I'll just share what I know from the arms. Like, what I've learned from drawing the arms is that I do group the arms into compartments, right? So, let's say, uh, comment. Like, I read David, I said read, looked at David Finch video a few times, right? And one thing I saw is that he grouped the arms into four sections in total, right? So you could have a, a, a big cable like this, right? And then you would group the arm into two, right? And then you could then group it into four, right? And so this upmost area is going to represent your deltoid, right? It's going to represent your deltoid, which you can draw like this, where you'll be seeing your medial and rear delt, and then um, this area is going to represent your biceps. It's going to sort of lean into, like, there's this groove over here, and it's going to go all the way down like this, right? Something like this. And this guy over here is our is our uh, not brachioradialis, not brachioradialis. I've forgotten the name. But there's a muscle here rather, that's in this middle part here, right? That follows the groove of the deltoid on the side view. And then we have our biceps muscle over here, like this, yeah. And then we then have our tricep muscle. Let me just erase this thing over here. Tricep muscle, and this is where our brachioradialis is actually, right? So the compartments, so this side is going to be for our ridge muscle. I'm going to label it. I'm going to label it so that you can understand, right? So the important parts to know is this area over here, the deltoid, yeah, and this area here, our biceps. Let me just color it for you. The guy in purple is our the arm has so much flexibility. So there's what they call the pronated and the supinated position of the arm, but we'll deal with that later. So this area here is in purple is our biceps, right? This is our deltoid. I mean, this area here is our biceps, right? Yeah, no problem. You can follow along, man. This area here is our biceps, right? Um, and this area here in green is our triceps. Right, let me explain something to you. The same thing I was talking about, the etymology of names, or why certain names are named, why the way they are rather. It's because, let's just go. It's called biceps, right? But it's called biceps because bi means two, right? And ceps means head, right? So biceps means two-headed muscle. So biceps means two-headed muscle. And you have triceps, right? And tri means three, and ceps means head. So that's three-headed muscle. So we have our deltoid. What the hell? Um, it's called deltoid because it's I think it means triangle, because if you look at this shape, uh, this is a triangular looking shape. The deltoid has a triangular looking shape, and that's also because of our scapula. The scapula is the bone of our backbone, right? And our backbone is sort of triangular. Um, so when you are drawing a person, and when I'm talking about big shape, and then you draw a person, the torso like this, and then you draw these two arms over here, which represents the deltoid. You could also do it like this, right? Which will represent the deltoid as well, which is a triangular shape. Yeah. So sorry about that. Let's continue. So we have our triceps over there, and then we have what they call in yellow. I'm going to put this in yellow. The ridge muscle. What the hell am I doing? The ridge muscle. I'm going to label it. Yes, it's called the brachialis. It's called the brachialis. It's called the brachialis. I remember now. So far what we have is deltoid, deltoid. Hope you can see that. Let me remove this. So what we have is deltoid and biceps, right? And then we have brachialis, and then we have ridge muscles. Now these ridge muscles represent a lot of muscles, right? It represents that brachioradialis I was just talking about, that I was mistaken for this brachialis, right? So it represents a lot of muscles around this area, right? that, if you actually look at it, that are connected to the arm. So we have the ridge muscles, we have the extensor muscles, and then we have the flexor muscles, right? And I'm going to draw that here. So now the arm curves like this, the ridge muscle curves all the way down like this, and then we then have our extensor muscles. The extensor muscles are the muscles for this front part, right? They help to extend the arm. So you hear of a muscle like extensor digitorum, um, extensor digitorum longus, right? And that kind of name can be a mouthful, but if you break that name down, you would see like extensor, right? It's a muscle that extends the digits of the hands, right? So extensor digitorum, digits, right? Our digits, that's our fingers, right? Longus. Longus simply means long, right? So if you hear a name like that, it simply means it's a long muscle that extends the digits of the arm. So you would hear extensor digitorum brevis, right? Brevis simply means brief. Um, brevis simply means brief or short, right? So it's a short muscle that extends the digits of the arms, but they are all classified under extensor muscles, which is the muscle of this front area here. And I'm just going to color it in, let me pick a different color. Um, let's see, pinkish, light pink. I'll use light pink. Right. So and simply we have that sort of muscle broken down, and depending on how you drew the arm, right, this arm is going to be in let me just say, it's going to be in a pronated position. So when we say pronated, it simply means our hands are facing down, but when we say supinated, it means our arms are facing up, our palms are facing up. Pronated equals palm facing down. Supinated equals palm facing up, right? So this palm is going to be facing down, which means it's in a pronated position. And the way I draw the arms, just a simple box here and then a triangle, and then something simple like this for the fingers, and then um, our thumb, right? Something simple. I'm not going to detail because we're looking at the arm, right? And simply we have the muscles of the arm. That's simple, right? You just have to group them into simple shapes. Let me just label this. You just have to group them into groups. That I didn't put my triceps. I'm going to just put that here. Extensor. So extensor are the muscles outside, and flexors are the muscles inside. I'm going to do another view of the arm so that you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry for the delay. Deltoid. No. Triceps. Let me just erase this. I hope I'm explaining it well. So I'm going to show the arm in another position. Right. So where we could see the flexor muscles. All right. So remember, when we are breaking it down from beginning, you're going to make a long tube like this, and then you're going to divide that tube equally into 4, right? Divided into 4. Let me make it a bit bolder. We're going to divide it into 4, right? Right, something like this. And because this is going to help you, position the muscles, right? So this first part is going to be our deltoid. Yes. So remember the triangular shape here is going to be turned in a bit, right? Like this. And that's because of the perspective. This is going to be in a different perspective. So that's the first box. That's the first box, right? That's the first box. So we are going to go to the second box, and this second box is going to cover the biceps and the tricep muscles, and the brachialis muscle I was talking about. It's going to cover the brachialis muscle, biceps and triceps and brachialis muscle. So because of this angle, our biceps is going to just be like this. Yes, like this. And there's something I'm just going to show you real quick, right? So there's something that is called the groove of the arm, right? So what that means is that there's a bit of counterbalance with how the arm looks. So let me just zoom in here a bit. So we have this shape, right? And then we're going to divide it into 4, our arms into 4, right? And then to make your arm look good, you are going to have to do something called, what I just talked about, counterbalance. What that means is that some parts of the arm are not going to be even. They are not going to be symmetrical. So if we're drawing the triceps muscle like this, right? The bicep muscle isn't going to be like this. And if we're drawing our arm like this, our arm isn't going to be like this. It's going to be a bit different, right? So this arm is going to come down a bit like this. This arm is going to come a bit like this, creating something a bit more like this, right? And this arm over here is going to come down a bit more like this, right? And then you're going to sort of see how, it's going to give it a bit more life. And, you have a good looking arm here like this, right? So counterbalance, remember it, right? Something like this. You can see these angles are not the same. And you can see these angles are not the same as well. And that's because of counterbalance, and it makes your arm look realistic. It makes your arm look a lot realistic. Yeah, so let's continue this angle. So it's the same thing we're doing here. So this area has a peak. This first area is going to be for the upmost part of the arm that has the ridge muscles. And this area over here is going to go down a bit. It's not going to be straight. It's going to be bent. And go all the way down. Sorry, I made the arm too big. And then we can then divide the ridge muscle. You can see the way the ridge muscle is here like this. Yeah, so you're going to see it like from this area all the way down like this. And that's our ridge muscle. And then our flexor muscle is going to be at this other end, and our extensor muscle is going to be at this other end. Sorry if it's a bit confusing, but sometimes it's going to take you, you might have to draw it a couple times before you actually get it. So remember, you divide it into 4, and then you take note of this counterbalance that I'm talking about, because that's actually what's going to make your arm look lively. Wait a minute. That's what's going to make your arm look lively. So that's our deltoid. Take note of these guys over here: our deltoid, our biceps, our triceps, right? Our brachialis in orange, and our ridge muscle, which is this big guy over here in yellow. I hope you can see that. And then our extensor muscle, remember, extensor muscle are at the front, and then flexor muscles, I'm going to put it in light blue now. This weird blue looking, well, I call it sky blue. Flexor, anyways. So these are just the simple shapes you need to learn, and then of course you could then use references to properly detail the arm. There's one more view that would be very good to explain the look of the arm. Let me just do that here. I'm going to do that view here right now. So the same technique into 4. I just feel like detailing this tricep muscle. So into 4, like I was saying, into 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then because this view is different, we're going to put our deltoid here because it's connected to the back muscles. It's connected to the back muscles. So you can see the triangle in this shape. That's why it's called a deltoid triangle, or pyramid shape, anyone that you want to look at it, any way you want to look at it. And then we're going to have our triceps rather are going to come out here like this. So remember the counterbalance that we're talking about. So you can see that angle like that. It's not even, it's not symmetrical. It's asymmetrical. So this is going to be our deltoid, and the deltoid muscle is quite big. It's quite big. And then our biceps is going to be this guy over here, and then you then see the connection of our bicep muscle over here, and I think this muscle is called our acromius. It's right beneath the triceps. Is the, what they call them, the elbow, around the elbow. But anyways, we have our extensor muscle that goes all the way down like this. So you're going to see the flexor muscle. As simple as that, and we've sort of drawn our arm. So I know it can be a bit confusing, but with practice you definitely get better at it. And because of the different angles and positions that the arm can take, it can be quite challenging sometimes. So I did do some breakdowns of how I drew the arm. you can check that out. But what I would suggest is you get this book, this Anatomy for Sculptors. It's a very rich book. It's very helpful, and you can get a lot of like. What I just did was I just drew the like did the drawings in the book, and I got better. That's what I would say. So let me just color this. Let me just do this arm. Yeah, so same exercise. Once you do this exercise and you actually color them, it sort of sticks to your memory over and over again, the muscles of the arm and how they look in all these different angles. Right here, our triceps all the way down, like that. And then the ridge muscles, you won't be able to see the ridge muscles from here, but you will be able to see some of the some of the some of the extensor muscles, and you'll be able to see the flexor muscles as well. Um, Adam said that was a great lesson. You explain it like a good teacher. I have a better mental picture to keep in my mind with this simplification. Thank you for taking the time to show this. Yeah, you're welcome, man. I could go deeper, but um, it, you know, I'll do more videos and streams that actually explain this a whole lot better. But this is my current understanding of how the arm looks, and irrespective of the fact that you've known the basics, you should always try and use references as well. It's what I do at least. It's going to be very helpful. References, man, references. So I use a lot of references whenever I'm drawing, so that irrespective of the fact that I can. So it's going to help you with figure drawing, right? So I could have an idea of a pose that I want to execute, and then I draw it, right? But then I'm not really satisfied with how it looks, but it looks pretty decent. I can then look for references and just do a little bit of adjustment. But it's going to help with initial ideation of what I want to draw. So anyway, going back to Dan Mora's work here, you can see how he draws his lips. He's pretty consistent in terms of style with how he draws all like female lips, right? He just has that M shape and that will I say U shape? U shape, and most of the time it just looks like the women had surgery on their lips most of the time. I really appreciate you asking me these questions, Adam. Thank you for also taking the time to comment. It has been really helpful. And all these questions challenges my knowledge as well. And if I don't know something, I'm going to say it, say I don't know, and then I'm going to take a mental note of what I need to improve on myself. I could just do a quick search and just remind myself, or after some time that I've thought about it, I can then remember, and then it sort of strengthens my link to those information consistently. So once you've learned, always try to teach anybody that is willing, or just share your knowledge. Yeah. Duck lips. That's it. That's what they are called. Duck lips. Yeah. Um, Just seems as if the women it was sometimes like they have surgery on their lips or something. And I see that a lot. And someone made a very funny comment about it on Twitter or X. Um, and it was quite funny. It's like the person just voiced something that everyone was thinking. Yeah, thanks, man. You said in time I could mentor other students. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. And like I was saying, the way I look at it is, being like a fellow student in a class that a difficult subject is being taught, and but for whatever reason you read ahead, and so you read other material, so you sort of understand the subject a little bit better than your other classmates or fellow students. So you then explain it to them, and the more you help out your classmates and explain it to them, you know the more of an authority you are going to be in that subject. It's all about sharing. It's all about sharing. Nobody just woke up as a paragon of knowledge. No one was born as a paragon of knowledge. That's what I mean. Yeah. Anyways, so we have our biceps over here. You said, do you also look at Japanese game artists? There is a lot to learn from them. Japanese game artists, yeah, do they do like I don't know. I don't know anything about them, to be honest. Do you have any recommendation of what to search for to get into that? Um, I don't know. Like, the only thing I know, like that I follow Japan for, is usually their art, their manga art. I don't know anything about their game art. I didn't even know there were anything such as game art. Um, Apart from like the normal um, you know, concept art for games and stuff like that. If you have any recommendations, I can just write them down here and check them later on. Someone recommended a cool manga for me uh, a few days ago. So, and I'm always open to expanding my knowledge. And if you have anyone that is online that I can also check out. Um, I'm not going to draw these flowers around her because, well, that's sort of not the aim of this, because it's going to take a lot of time to finish if I do that. So I'm just going to focus on the pose and what we have here. I think I made her hips too wide. So that same thing I was talking about with arms, and you can see really skilled artists, they just do it subconsciously. Um, and because we are also learning, sometimes we don't notice that. You can see that thing I was talking about, counterbalance, in terms of the biceps and triceps. You can see that they are not on a straight line, right? They are asymmetrical. The biceps has its peak lower and the triceps has its peak higher. um, and then when you also go to the arm, you can see that the upper ridge has a peak and the lower ridge has a lower peak. And most artists, they just take liberal, how would I call it, liberties, and just make it straight. But ideally, usually, um, there's a lower peak, there's a little peak over here, and then the arm goes down. And you just have a much more cool looking arm that way. Okay, so you said let me write them down. Yeah, Japanese game artist, a game artist. You said Tetsuya Nomura. Tetsuya Nomura. And who else? From Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy. Is that Bengus from Marvel versus Capcom game? Bengus. Probably butchering their name. Marvel versus Capcom game. Yeah, I'll check them out later, man. Thanks. If you have any more, just let me know. I'll write them down and check them out. Of course, as I'm checking them out, I'll definitely see more recommendations. Yeah. Anyways, I'm still talking about the biceps and the triceps. You can see the peak of the triceps is higher. It's higher than the peak of the biceps. And because of her positioning of her arm, the biceps is a bit flexed. So and this is a stylistic preference, but ideally the elbow would be curved, but he just took the liberty and just made it sharp. And then hands can be a bit difficult to draw, but like I do say, I use simple shapes like this, yeah, and I then use skeletons like this to position the arm, and then a triangle here for the thumb. And that is my approach to drawing a lot of arms. Although most times you could encounter arms that would require a lot more attention, and of course you give them those attention, but using that simple idea has helped me draw a lot of arms correctly. Uh, and because I just used that skeleton line, to help me with the initial direction of the fingers, drawing the arm has been easy in this case, at least. And the arm is something you can always improve on. Well, I try to improve on it, and sometimes my arms look at my hands, the hands that I draw, look absolutely horrendous. But when I just take my time to actually break it down, I end up with something that looks decent. So over here we have our palm, and then our thumb, and then we can add our fingers. Not be exact, but we'll manage it for now. And then the other finger, her middle finger, I believe. Then what do you call this finger over here? Pinky pinky finger. Pinky finger. Not the most perfect hand, and it doesn't look exactly. Of course, I could make it look exactly, but I don't want to. Um, but anyways, that is the finger. Her fingers, I mean. Yeah, pinky finger. Exactly. Pinky finger. Yeah, so I think that's okay. Then let me just add her hair to just give it that extra lush. Uh, let's see. Let me just clear this. All right. So just adding her hair to just make it look cool. But most things people miss about the way an artist draws is the way the face of their character looks. I didn't exactly get it perfectly, but I believe I kind of got the idea of what he was going for. um and his idea of hatching and shading. If you look at her, like around her body, you're going to be seeing textures that I was talking about. And the work just looks simple. But of course, you have to applaud the colorist, whether that's him or someone else. Um, the colors just pop. Um, but his drawing in general is pretty simple. I can't deny that it's pretty simple, but it's not like simple in the sense of, like I said before, in the sense that it's like he's a basic artist, or like he's not. I just mean that it's not as sophisticated or like as detailed as other artists are, and this is a perfect art style for like especially comic books these days, and for dishing out constant comic books and artwork. Yeah, I think yeah, that's it. I don't know if I want to like ink this, like detail it, because I feel like I've sort of gotten the gist of it. Let me take my time and just ink it. uh, I'll just add some blacks here and there, and make it look a bit better. You'd see that he uses a lot of black, and then there's a bit of highlight. See that thing I was saying about dark triangles with the lips, where you could actually use that for smiles and stuff like that. So he uses dark triangles a lot to add smiles and smirks to his characters. Where's my inking? Thicker eyelashes, definitely. And then her eyelid. I didn't put her eyelid for this second one. I probably could do better with the eyebrow. Then her mask, I think, is a mask. And then the light that is coming in from that angle. And then her hair. Of course, she has these thorns around her crown. That's a nice design, can't lie. And then completion of the mask. Mask looks a bit like that of Miss Marvel. Sorry, Marvel Girl, Jean Grey. Like he's just a simple guy. Like look at just how he just uses blacks and just goes straight to the point. Like no fussing about um with too much detailing. Like even the noses, right? Of course, in comics, the less line you use, the more um, cleaner and younger your character would look. And of course, the colorist did the work with adding value to the character. Yeah, thank you. You said good touch-ups on the teeth and eyes. Yeah, I just decided to just make it a bit cleaner. Uh, I didn't want to because I'm feeling a bit lazy about it, but I just thought, since I started, let me just add that. Um, so that's what I'm doing here. Just making it look a bit cleaner. And it's quite interesting to see how he applies blacks. Um, like he uses it not so much because sometimes he would start with it and then apply like a texture or brush texture over it. Like at this area part of you can see that there's a bit of brush texture here and there, but I'm not going to do that because that's not what I would do. I'm not so big on texture because I tried using texture at one point when I was learning um, like inking, but I didn't enjoy like how I did it because I couldn't always replicate it because the artist I was studying that time was Jorge Jimenez, and I didn't like the way my art looked at that time. It seemed like I was copying him so much, and I didn't like how the artworks always ended. Um, all right, so this her armpits area. He applied a lot of this quite nice. I don't know if that's part of her clothes design or uh, shadows of the thorns around her or leaves, thorns and leaves around her. Yeah, so yeah, and then apparently it looks like he did some hatch lines around here like this to follow the form of her arm, and then he just did that indication for the muscle, that brachialis muscle, and there are some shadows around her skin for around the clothes, for the leaves and the thorns around her, following her design. And then there's a shadow over here following the light. What you could do is you could just do something like this for her knuckles, the shadow around her knuckles. Um, that's because of the radius and ulnar bone. around here. Say gotta go, but look forward to see you your next artist study. I learned a lot from hearing your thoughts. Have a good stream, bro. Yeah, you too, man. I really appreciate that you stayed as long as you did, man. I didn't expect anyone. I don't think anyone has stayed this long with me. Usually I do stay for around 1 hour plus. But I think I've done far longer than that. I think this will be the last one. But I really appreciate you staying around and asking me questions and actually engaging with me. I've actually learned a lot from a lot of the things you said, and I'm really grateful for the Japanese game artist recommendations that you've given me. I'm going to check that out and see what I can learn from them. Thanks, man. I hope you have a lovely week ahead and a lovely day as well. Um, yeah, and I hope to see you soon as well, Adam. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Have a nice day. Um, yeah, so uh, just add the blacks at this pubic area. Mm, let's watch some music. Mm. Okay, now we are around her abs. Around her abs. Another thing I noticed about his art is that his hatchings aren't the cleanest, in my opinion. It gets the job done, but they are not the cleanest. But like the rest of his art are clean, but his hatches are not the cleanest. And it's not like he can't make them clean. It's that he's working with time. He has time constraints. Her abs. So what I'm just going to do here is just add these patches around her skin. And I think that, yeah, that's how I'll leave that. Yeah, yeah, that's nice. So there are a lot of hatches around this area, and yeah, now the hatches around here are quite clean. Let me just do this. Yeah. So remember, the purpose of hatching lines are to help you follow the form and show where light and dark is. And the hatching lines usually are receding into the light, and how dark or light the hatching lines are is going to tell us. Um, it's going to tell us, it's going to help with the value and give us more information about the 3D form of what we are looking at. So I just put in the shadow under her. Of course, it could be cleaner. I mean, I could do it cleaner, but if I do that, we're going to be here all day, and we would never study any more artists. Right, so I don't think I did that well. All right, so we have around this chest area there's a bit of darkness, but we have to put that light so that it can separate this dark area from, you know, this other dark area. Right, that's looking good. That's looking good. Some hatches beneath her biceps. And then yeah, that's looking all right. And then you could add some dirt here and there, some debris, right, to, you know, make it look good. And then, you know, make that pop. Anyways, so what he's just doing over here is that he's just adding some hatches here and there to just add some depth and just make the entire work look a lot more interesting. But at least that's what I'm taking note of. That looks a bit off. Yeah, but anyways, I think I'm going to leave it here for now. I think I've gotten one or two things from it. It's not entirely understood the art style, but I think at a good place, and I've picked a thing or two in terms of not like I studied his composition, but in terms of like the simplicity and especially how he draws leaves for both guys and women, and his hatching lines and hatching technique. So there is a lot to learn from just copying an artist's work, or maybe applying it to your own art. So don't, you know, scoff at, you know, doing art studies. If you like an artist, um, you know, the way an artist does his illustrations, or you fancy an art style, try and copy what the artist has done. Sometimes I don't like, you know, drawing exactly the character that is being drawn, because it's probably a very popular character, and, you know, I prefer to draw mine. Um, but most times you can't actually do that. You can't actually get the full understanding of the artist's art style if you don't copy directly what they are doing. So um, yeah, it just depends on you. So try to have fun with this stuff. Look at that. There's some patches around this area. Yeah, so yeah, I think we're good for now. If you like this video, please just give it a thumbs up. If you learned a thing or two, um, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for showing up, and, you know, those that keep showing up to the stream. I really appreciate it. Just here, just the quick studies that we've done, and we also touched on the arm as well. Uh, Adam and I just, you know, had a brief chat on the arm. It also gave me an opportunity to refresh my memory. I want to thank everyone that showed up. I want to thank Emma Wolan Sari. Thanks to Adam. Thanks for showing up and thanks for chatting with me. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great week ahead. Peace out.